Good evening. Once again, my name is Skip Lehman, and welcome to the Ford Motor Company Hamilton Watch Fly-In Theater. Tonight is a very, very special night. We're actually getting started a little bit earlier tonight because we have so much fun stuff to talk about with one of the funnest guys I've met in a long time. It's my great, great pleasure to welcome to AirVenture and introduce filmmaker Mr. George Lucas.
Okay, it's great to be here. My friend Harrison Ford told me about this for years and years, and it's great to finally be here.
So, the way the night's going to run now, just so you know, we're going to talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to show this most amazing trailer you've ever seen, and we actually, George, honored all of us in EA by selecting EA last night to be the world premiere of the trailer for the new movie Red Tails. And having been at EA things and events for 20-some-odd years, never saw a reaction in the room that size. First it was dead silence while the trailer was playing, and then he got a standing ovation. So it's our kind of movie, it's our kind of trailer, and for George to select Oshkosh to premiere this trailer, and it went out on Yahoo this morning at 6 to stand?
Yeah, it ended up on the website.
And Yahoo had an exclusive on it after we had it, so we can all be very, very proud. So, George, I know this is a way to move up. Tell me about this spectacular movie and how long you've been working on it.
Well, I started working on this 23 years ago. A friend of mine who was an aerial photographer, George Hall, told me the story, and I was so excited about it that I immediately went out and bought the rights and started working on a screenplay. The story was so fantastic, and the story of the Tuskegee Airmen is so rich, and there's so much to it, that it literally working, with a dozen writers over a period of 20 years, it was very difficult to come up with the right story, because I wanted to make basically an inspirational film for teenagers, and at the same time make a movie that was basically a dogfight movie. Because I'd never really seen a good dogfight movie except back in the old days during Flying Leathernecks and movies that were made during World War II. I think doing the Star Wars films, I learned ways of creating dogfights and doing that sort of thing that I wanted to really explore in a story like this. So it took us a long time to get the script right and get it to where it was basically a very small story about a bunch of kids in their early 20s who, end up in a lot of aerial combat. And it's a movie about pilots. And so we also have been coming here. I haven't been coming here for years, but the producer and a lot of our staff has been coming here, and we've used some pilots here for advisors and that sort of thing. So there's a certain connection between us and Oshkosh.
I also said to George told me, or Rick told me earlier today, that 99% of the people in this world never heard of Tuskegee Airmen. And I said, well, you're not going to find out at Oshkosh. Has anybody here not heard of Tuskegee Airmen? See? And that's just like, this is
there's one over there. Actually.
Okay, the boy or girl, man or woman, security, throw her out. Don't make a liar out of me.
It's a 10-year-old.
Okay, that's okay. And isn't that a shame? And 88% of the African, the blacks in this world, the African Americans, I've never heard of the Tuskegee Airmen. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's Tuskegee Airmen is a story that really has been untold, and it's really an amazing, American kind of story about heroes who did great things during the war, but nobody's ever written about them. I mean, people have written about them, but nobody's ever made a movie about them. And so this was my chance. And the film has got an hour's worth of dogfighting in it, so it sort of satisfies my need that I guess I've displayed in all Star Wars films. Taken everything from the trench runs to the beginning of Attack of the Clones, and put it all together in one movie and changed all the spaceships, P-51s and Messerships.
Yeah. Now, having seen the trailer several times myself. You're going to see some stuff tonight. And having flown a lot of these airplanes myself, and being the insides and outsides of them, you're going to see some stuff that's going to blow you away. I mean, I worked in the movie The Memphis Belle, and I've never seen aerial stuff like this before, ever. It's just like, when I saw it for the first 2 or 3 times, we were 3 o'clock in the morning in New York City with my 16-year-old daughter, we both got goosebumps, because she said, Dad, can I see it again? We saw it 3 times. Little did I know the sneaky son of the guns from Lucasfilm, some of those Mission Impossible things, like self-destruct after 3 viewings, so you can't show it to anybody else. But just spectacular stuff, and it's gotten better since then. So, you've had, you're like out there, you know, fighting with windmills to get this film seen, honestly. Tell us about that.
But it was a tough film for me to get the right screenplay, and then it became a very tough film to shoot. It's a very low-budget film, but it certainly doesn't look like it. It's a film that, when we took it to all the studios, everybody said, well, World War II movies don't work. You know, you can't, you know, they're not financially successful. And so I decided to, you know, release it myself. We got some cooperation with 20th Century Fox, and then also bringing out the 3D version of Star Wars a month later. So we were able to leverage one against the other. You know, all the studios in town think I'm crazy. None of them think this is actually going to work, but I think there's a real thirst for good, old-fashioned American-style movies that are very patriotic and at the same time are about pilots. I think there's a lot of people that are interested in flying and that would like a movie like this and would like dogfighting as much as I do.
And just as important, it's a very, very inspiring story. It's a sign of the times that a lot of us weren't around in those days, and we didn't see the kind of segregation there was. I mean, the U.S. Army Air Corps was the first military organization that used integrated the troops in some instances, and the rest of the military wasn't integrated to a troop many years later. So it was the beginning of something. And somebody last night who was in the screening was made a very profound statement. And it was, and I heard a lot of fun stuff, but the one I heard was to me seemed very profound, said the Tuskegee Airmen did more for the cause than Rosa Parks. They probably started, didn't they?
Yeah, it was the beginning of what we call the modern civil rights movement, was the Tuskegee Airmen, and that they worked very hard to integrate the armed forces, especially the Army Air Corps. And they did it, what part of what the movie's about. They did it because they did such a great job, and they did a great job because they brought the pilots of the bombers back, and that was their focus. They really had to give up a lot of glory and a lot of swastikas on their airplane in order to be sure that they got the pilots back alive. And they became so famous for that eventually all the bomber pilots wanted them to do escort for them. Whether or not they ever lost the plane or not, no one really knows. That the bomber pilots believed it, whether it was again a superstition or a reality. The feeling was that if you had the red tails on your run, you weren't going to lose any planes to fighters. You might lose some to flak, but you certainly wouldn't lose any to Messerschmitts. And
did they get a reputation with the Germans? Did the Germans eventually try to stay away from the bombers that they were guarding for the same reason? Did the Germans try to stay away from the red tails? The German airmen try to stay away because they had heard the same thing, how aggressive they were and everything else? Were the Germans more weary of them than the other fighter squadrons?
No, I think, yeah, the thing is the Germans had a trick they used, which is to sort of draw off the fighters so that the fighters would go after the Messerschmitts. And the Red Tails, Benjamin Davis actually, said, you will not do that. You'll be court-martialed if you do that. If you go out and chase Messerschmitts, you're going to be out of the Air Corps as fast as you can think. And so they sucked near the bombers. And as a result, they didn't get as many kills, but they did get a lot of planes back.
And, and so every one of those guys who sacrificed themselves for a box with 4 airplanes with 40 men in it. And imagine, imagine the feeling of a fighter pilot seeing the enemy airplanes there. And what's the fighter pilot? The fighter pilot will shoot down enemy airplanes, and they stay there to protect the guys. You said something else earlier today. I think you said it's like American graffiti with airplanes. It's like American graffiti with airplanes.
Oh, it is kind of. It's about a bunch of kids, all in their early 20s, and instead of having fast cars, they have fast airplanes. The other part of it is, which is more of my putting things into it, is that the great days of the knight in shining armor, which turned into the cavalry and the aristocratic group of warriors that were in the cavalry, who up until World War I were the elite of the fighting corps, and then in World War I, the pilots took over that mantle and became the elite of the fighting corps with the pilots. And that lasted up through World War II. And the thing that happened in World War II, which is part of what the movie's about, is with the invention of jets, it began to erode the whole concept of dogfighting. Because now, as you know, you sit in a plane and you see somebody 2,500 miles, you push a button and the rocket goes and blows them up. And that grew out of, in other words, like American graffiti, this was the last great war in which dogfighting was a real, I don't know, they call it a blood sport, but a real challenge of wits and dexterity and courage. Because once you got to the Korean War, it became more of a, they'd send up a missile, and the job wasn't to chase somebody, the job was to get away from somebody. And that's gotten worse and worse and worse, where now it literally is, we don't really have dogfights the way we used to. And the ones we do have are way so sophisticated that it doesn't have the same gut-wrenching reality that we had during World War II. So that's one of the reasons I did it, because it's kind of a nostalgic look at a world that was on its way to what we know as the modern world and modern warfare.
We were out walking around the Warbirds today. It was the P-40 there, and the old Flying Tiger, the old AVG mark. I happen to mention that. And I just remember a pretty astute student of aviation history, especially World War II aviation history. And what George told me, I didn't realize is that the first planes that were given, you told the rest of the story, what were the first planes they got? The Tuskegee Airmen? They were the old Flying Tiger airplanes.
Yeah, they were.
So imagine these overall airplanes that are flying in China, Burma, India, with the Chinese Free Air Force since 1941.
Yeah, the P-40s were kind of ragged. And, I made the movie primarily because of the 262 and the Mustang. I love Mustangs. I have all my life. And I like machines. I don't fly, I like cars, but I do like machines.
So you like Mustang cars is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I got involved in cars, and I bounced off so many walls and risked my life so many times, I decided that if I got into airplanes, I wouldn't bounce off the ground as well as I bounced off walls.
We also heard last night that when he was 19 years old, he volunteered to sweep out the shop with Carol Shelby.
Yeah, Carol was at this other dinner last night, and it was great to see him, because that's where I started. I was a racing driver at that point, and my best friend was the manager of Cobra, and we built sort of an anti-factory team that we challenged the factory team with, and did pretty well at it.
So, we've been talking about all this stuff, and I give you the film, I have all kinds of wonderful stories today about the Tuskegee Airmen. And this is just, you said, this is a small part. This is a small part of what they did. There's nothing, this is just like sort of the middle section of what they did. So, do you think there might be another movie here? You think? What do you think? I mean, there's so much to talk about. about this.
The issue was that one of the reasons it took me so long to come up with the screenplay, because every time we started, even though this was basically the movie I started out wanting to make, I said I want to make an inspirational movie for teenagers so they can realize that there's a history and there's more to life than sports and music, which is good. I have nothing against that. But at the same time, I wanted to broaden people's horizon that flying is a really exciting thing to do, and that all the pilots, obviously, for the movie were college graduates. They're really smart. They really went on to do amazingly great things, and you know, to kind of broaden people's horizons, especially